Hello, welcome back to Learn It from a Layman. I am Carl Christensen, joined today by Cameron again, Matt, and Tim. I would like to eat some more cocks.
I'm always hungry.
Which explains our topic for today's podcast, which is the basics of diets. So there'll be a lot to cover here. There's a lot of information about diets and the various types of diets, why you would want a diet, the different outcomes and goals of the diets help facilitate. But before we do that,
we have to put out our disclaimer. Do not do anything that we say on this podcast. You might die.
This is not medical advice. Johnny is not on this podcast. So, and yes, we try to do our best at researching facts, but always remember that you're learning it from a layman. So
not a doctor, not even close to a doctor, except Johnny, but that's different.
Yes. Okay. Well, let's dive in here. Diets. So generally, when you hear the word diet, you probably think weight loss. I think that's soda. At least. Do you think soda? That might be a topic. That is a good choice. However, not helpful in diets, Matt. Though diets, there are multiple types of diets, not just the type of food that you're eating or the calorie restrictions that you're going on, but sometimes there are people out there that go on diets to gain weight, right? So losing weight, dieting is not synonymous with losing weight. It can be something that you do to gain weight. It can also be something you're doing for other medical purposes, right? So the three types of diets really are your weight loss diet, your weight gain diet, and your health motivated diet, which might not have the outcome to lose a particular type of weight, but instead achieve a particular medical outcome. So wherever you are looking at any of these diets, our goal in this podcast is to discuss a few of those the various types of food diets and or calorie restrictions and how they play into these different types of dieting. Obviously, by far and away, the majority of those listening, and myself included, have probably gone on weight loss diets before. Probably not a lot of us go on weight gain diets. Tim accepted, of course.
Actually.
Gotta bulk up for those middle school fights.
That's right. No, I've never actually done a weight gain diet, but I have tried to gain weight, So
yeah, put on a little muscle, going out for the NFL, right, Tim?
Indeed, they need water boys.
Do they need large water boys?
Derailing again.
That's right.
Okay, and then health purpose diets are, and so that can be both for those that struggle with anorexia, people that struggle with diabetes or particular maybe high cholesterol or hypertension. Lots of reasons that you'd want to cut or change the foods that you eat in order to not even necessarily drop weight, but to cut out salt, which adds
for example,
points. For example, cuts out you cut out salt to help with your blood pressure. So,
and I'll add to this. You've got people who have to restrict their diets for not just health, but for medical reasons. So, say someone with celiacs, can't gluten. We know someone who actually has to keep salt out of her diet because of how it affects her, in her ear or something. But Crohn's and various things, allergies. So yeah.
Perfect. Okay, so what we're going to do is start with citing a doctor, because this, I think, is the way to go. when it's a bunch of us talking about things that we have some passing familiarity with.
Can I also just re-emphasize our disclaimer? Before you do anything, go see a real doctor.
Yes, exactly. Johnny would actually be the ideal person to have. So we try to exclude people that would be ideal because not only is Johnny a doctor, his wife is a dietitian. So
totally not Layman.
Anyway, in this case, Amanda Holzer, she is a dietitian, suggests these following questions when you're starting a new diet. And while I think she was probably discussing specifically weight loss diets, I think these are relevant actually for any of these different types of diets. So first question, is the diet sustainable? I guess in the case of weight gain diets, it doesn't actually need to be sustainable. But for every other type of diet, you need to ask the question of sustainability, right? Does it need to be forever, right? If you are severely restricting calories, probably doesn't need to be forever. But if you severely restrict calories only to then let loose and go back to normal plus some, what exactly are you achieving? If you are trying to, cut out, take care of your hypertension, so your blood pressure, and you start cutting salt, is that sustainable? Can you actually do that long term, or is this a gut reaction, a knee-jerk reaction to going and visiting the doctor, and he's saying, oh, you need to drop your blood pressure, or you're going to put on blood pressure medication. If you then cut salt and then a month later you're saying, well, that's ruining my life, then that's not sustainable, right? So ask yourself, well, what can I do sustainably?
Also ask yourself what kind of life you're living if salt is the deciding factor as to whether or not your life is ruined.
A lot of popcorn, Matt. A lot of popcorn.
And that's actually a fair point.
and eating food that's like not salted, it's really, can be pretty bland.
Especially Tim, when he goes out back and picks his okra, he wants some salt on that before he eats it.
Absolutely. Fresh okra with salt is sublime.
Yeah. So, I mean, the original point was when you consider sustainability, really seriously consider the cost benefit. Are these things that you're going to be able to sacrifice or cut out as needed, whether it be salt, fat, sugar, whatever.
Right. Yep. And
what?
Tim?
Sorry. I was going to take a moment to plug in my 2 bits on sustainability by I'm going to refer to 2 different people or sources I've heard. One is called Tiny Habits and one is called Atomic Habits, and they both kind of, is at least as far as I understand, kind of have the same basic concept. Whenever you are trying to build or break a habit, trying to do it all in one go is generally not going to be successful. So what you do is you try to build in tiny incremental changes that are more sustainable. So let's say I have a goal of losing some weight. Rather than saying, all right, on this day, I'm going to kick it into high gear, I'm going to totally change my diet and everything. Instead, I might just make some tiny change. I might say, the one change I'm going to make this week is every time I go to eat a snack, I'm going to make myself eat 3 carrot sticks before, and just kind of fill up on that stuff before I
self-flagellation.
Yeah, but constructive flagellation.
Notice I'm not like cutting out my snacks or doing anything. I'm just making a tiny change to that can be sustainable. And then so once I get that going, then I can make another tiny change. All right, now I've made a habit out of eating carrot sticks before I eat any of my preferred snacks. Now I'm gonna make it out of when I eat my preferred snack, I'm gonna make myself do 2 minutes of exercise beforehand. So before I have my snack, I'm gonna make myself, do 10 push-ups and 10 jumping jacks and 10 sit-ups or something like that. But make it tiny. You make these small incremental changes. You're not trying to turn the boat around immediately, but just small little things that you can sustain. And this does two things. One, it makes the change manageable. It's not this huge thing that's looming over you. You're not having to give up everything or change everything. You just I've got to do, 10 push-ups and 10 sit-ups before I eat my snack. Okay. I just got to eat a couple of carrot sticks. I can do that. And then over time, as those habits become ingrained, you actually start to see change. So anyways, there's my 2 bits. Make your diet incremental, sustainable, blah, blah, blah.
Right. Yeah. I think, and we'll talk about, so sustainability actually has more than just like, am I going to be able to sustain it? But as far as like mentally and willpower, it's also a question of, can I financially sustain it? So if you decide that the best way to implement a specific diet is, buying, whatever weight, loss program there is out there, financially, is it too much? Is it not achievable in that way? Or maybe, as we're going to talk later about the Mediterranean diet. Well, if you're an American and you're eating American and you decide, I'm going to do the Mediterranean diet, but that's probably a massive switch. And even if mentally you can, maybe you're not aware of how much time it takes to prepare Mediterranean food, or how it will affect those that you eat with frequently. And so there's the social aspects as well. Are those sustainable? So lots of things to consider as far as sustainability goes. Second question from Dr. Holzer. I think she's a doctor. Is this diet overly restrictive? So in that case, that is related to sustainability, but it's also this question of whether or not it is a good diet, I guess. Is this something that will negatively affect your overall health? Even, if you're dropping weight, but you're starving yourself, are there other vitamins you're dropping down on, or anyway, that type of thing. Question number 3, will you be able to live your life well on it? So that was that, what I've already essentially we're touching on there. There's social aspects to eating, right? A lot of eating is social. And so if you suddenly implement a specific diet where, for example, let's say you knock sugar out of your diet, good luck. Then let's say your friends call you up and say, we're going to go grab some dessert. What are you going to do? Sit there and watch
friends?
If Matt calls you up and says, let's go grab some donuts.
I won't share with you. I'm sorry, dear listener.
Yes.
I would. I would share my donuts with you.
Parenthetically and entirely off
Krispy
topic.
Kreme donuts.
They're building a Krispy Kreme down the street from me. That might not be a good thing.
There goes our Krispy Kreme endorsement. But anyway, point taken on yeah.
Social aspects of eating are frequently not considered in diets, but they are such an important part of it. And and because if you implement a diet but your spouse does not, or if you're implementing a diet but you have to feed your children, or you're implementing a diet but then you're going to go on a long trip, like there's so many social aspects of being able to control the food that you eat, that those need to be taken into consideration a priori
beforehand. Layman terms.
Oh, right. Well, I said it wrong. Does that it's like a layman?
Nope. Then you're just putting on airs.
Okay. And then Amanda Holzer asked, will you be adequately nourished? So also, once again, related to this overly restrictive, but essentially, are you going to give yourself scurvy if you're going on a keto diet?
So anecdote incoming.
Oh, yes.
I was with a guy who was in we were away from home for a while. We had to subsist on our own. Neither of us had spouses or partners to take care of us. And in this case, so this guy, he was actually in a different group. But yeah, he was on a keto-like diet, and basically his entire intake of food consisted of, I am not joking, cocktail weenies. And all he did was
Okay.
eat these meat products, and no kidding, he developed scurvy while we were out on this excursion.
That's horrifying.
Yeah, and I mean this is a work thing where we need people to be ready to do stuff and work. And this guy's his eyes are glazing over with scurvy scales or whatever. I think finally somebody took him aside and said, "Dude, you have to drink this orange juice or something." But anyway, yeah, nutrition, it matters.
It does matter. It does. So,
I think
good.
he was trying to do a weight gain diet, like trying to bulk up or something. I don't know.
Muscles, yes.
But
thus the cocktail.
Muscles at the
Cocktail
price
weenies
of.
would not be my choice to bulk up on.
Look, I'm not saying this guy particularly thought this through.
Just, I don't know. But I mean, you guys know I'm going to do a extreme starvation diet here in a few months or something like that. So
yeah.
Well,
yes.
Well,
I mean,
under a doctor's care. Right?
Yeah.
This is true. It will be under a doctor's supervision.
And I had a friend who did a ketosis, or I guess that's the keto diet. But yeah, she had to go into the doctor and get checked and have like injections of certain nutrients, I think, and that kind of thing. It's so yeah, those extreme ones are kind of scary. I think although we've stated that you should not take any of our advice, you should take our advice with a grain of salt. I think that our round dismissal of the cocktail weenie diet, you can take that one to the bank.
Or the doctor.
Yeah, that's right.
Actually, you won't have to take it to the doctor. Just don't eat the cocktail weenie diet.
Yeah, cocktail weenie diet's not going to work for you. Not going to do good things.
Okay, so we've ruled out cocktail weenies, and we could finish the podcast there. However, we are not going to.
One person at least would have benefited from that knowledge.
Would have saved him scurvy. Okay.
This is the type of thing that you don't think can happen, but like seriously, if you're not being wise and getting appropriate medical counseling before you jump into one of these things, that type of garbage can happen.
Yeah.
So don't be the guy that gets some like archaic, 15th century sailor's disease because he didn't think his diet through counseling.
Yes. Okay.
Drink some OJ or any other citrus food.
If he had just had orange juice and cocktail weenies, I'm sure everything would have been fine.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's move on to so those are the questions that as you're considering what diet road you're going to be going down. But let's talk about the different types of diets. So there's plant-based diets. And those are pretty self-explanatory, right? Those are obviously vegan, vegetarian, and those are, I guess it's not plant-based, but I've heard people that are flexitarian or pescatarian refer to themselves as vegetarian or as plant-based. But when you're eating an animal, I don't know. Anyway.
Well, I believe in the words of the great corn, which is a plant, it is okay to eat fish because they don't have any feelings.
Okay, perfect.
Take that to the bank.
And if you tell me that corn is a grain, I will say no, even though it is. Shut up.
Okay. Okay, so plant-based diets. We'll come back to plant-based diets because we got some things to talk about there. Low-carb diets. And low-carb diets, so the ones that restrict, obviously, the carbs and generally increase your fat intake.
Yep.
So that's your
a really good
diets.
way to do that one is to just cut out everything that isn't a cocktail weenie because there's no carbs in those.
Exactly. Yeah. So Atkins,
Again,
keto,
please counsel with a
paleo.
medical professional. I am not responsible or liable if you are dumb enough to just take my advice.
Okay. Yes. So low carb diets. We'll come back to that. Raw food diets. This one I wasn't aware of at all until relatively recently. I didn't know people did this.
Yeah,
But,
don't do this one with cocktail weenies.
There's no such thing as a raw cocktail weenie. That doesn't exist.
They're cured,
Well,
not cooked.
well,
Exactly.
actually,
Okay. The idea there is obviously
Curing
you're trying to
denatures the
exclude.
protein, thus it's not raw anymore.
There we go.
Okay. It says you exclude foods that have been cooked or heated above 118 degrees Fahrenheit or pasteurized, which seems, I mean, whatever. We'll come back to that one as well. And then a very popular one currently is intermittent fasting or any type of fasting related diet. And I think we'll start there because that's probably one that I know in America it's huge, and I'd imagine internationally, intermittent fasting. Candidly, we all intermittent fast, right? I mean,
Well, kind of.
in as much as you
Yeah,
sleep at
but
night.
it's intermittent fasting is you're not allowed to eat all day except for between like 2 and 4, and that's when you consume all your caloric intake.
Right. There are various types of hours people give themselves. I think 16-8 is a very popular approach. That might not be restrictive enough if you're trying to achieve a particular weight loss goal. Some people do 20. So these numbers are like 16 off. So no, you're fasting for 16 hours, eating for 8, or you're fasting for 20 hours, eating for 4. So there's various ways to achieve this, and you can obviously see how this would be effective in weight loss because you're fasting. And then obviously otherwise you can hydrate yourself outside of that. But intermittent fasting comes with some things to watch out for. I remember the first time I needed to diet. I'd gotten married, we had a child, and I'd gained 30 pounds because who does?
Impressive.
Yeah, wait, lot of popcorn, turns out.
We won't have to go into who doesn't.
Anyway, and so we went and got a trainer at the local gym, and I remember they were talking diet, and this was the first time in my life where I had been exposed to the idea that I needed to diet. Because as a teenager and an early 20-year-old something, you don't think about dieting as much. I'd grown up being quite athletic and doing things like that, so you don't even think about what you're eating. You can eat anything, anytime. Anyway, so this is my first exposure to someone talking really diet to a significant amount, at least directly to me for a purpose. And so he was talking about how your body's burns calories and how you kind of want to keep a constant metabolism going. And so intermittent fasting has some concerns as far as whether or not you're allowing your body to run on a relatively natural metabolic cycle. That aside, intermittent fasting does work, and I've seen it work. I had a friend of mine, so anecdotally, that I think he lost around 60 pounds doing intermittent fasting. He did it, I think, for about a year and lost 60 pounds. Once again, intermittent fasting, though, is something that you can do in various approaches. And so that is kind of up to what your goal is. It is great as far as the mental strain goes, because in a lot of diets, you're constantly thinking about what food you're going to eat and what foods you can't eat. And that's not the case with intermittent fasting. It is literally an on and off switch. So, all right. That's my 2 cents on intermittent fasting. Matt, Cameron, or Tim, any intermittent fasting insight before we move on to some of these other diets and how they rank as far as their effectiveness and things like that?
See a doctor, but in general, it is a beautiful thing to be able to just spend 4 solid hours eating.
That's
Get
not
yourself
quite
a
the
membership
idea.
at the local all-you-can-eat buffet. There you go.
I feel like I
I'm
need to
going
put the
to
disclaimer out there
local
again.
Chinese all-you-can-eat buffet. Um, I was going to say I would probably be cautious even when you're doing your intermittent fasting. I would still do high protein and stuff like that. So you're putting a lot of, those types of calories in your body versus emptier like breads and stuff like that. So, I mean, I still think even with that you want to probably be thinking of the type of food that you're going to be consuming.
Right.
So you have energy to continue.
Yeah, I do think, like I said, the considerations here with intermittent fasting, the upsides are like this lack of mental strain. It's an on and off switch. However, there are upsides to thinking about the food you're going to eat instead of just continuing to eat whatever you have always been eating, because.
But there's something also comfortable in just having a routine of knowing that I've got these cocktail weenies and that's all I'll ever need.
Oh my heavens.
I mean, some people do the cocktail weenies. Me, it's, I go to the local 24-hour taco shop and I just get a giant thing of carne asada nachos. One is probably going to be better for me than the other. So.
Okay. All right.
I think that's a good point. And, especially when you're considering, I'm sorry, I should be careful what the good point is. The thing that Cameron was actually saying about consider what foods you eat even during your intermittent fasting. Yeah, do that and talk with a doctor or nutritionist to kind of put together that plan.
Right.
And if the doctor or nutritionist just tells you cocktail weenies, find a new doctor.
You found the wrong doctor. Yeah, Tim?
No, I was hoping that Matt was saying Cameron's good point was about the carne asada nachos. That's a diet I would do.
Yes, exactly. Carne asada nacho diet, not high on the list of weight loss diets, but maybe on the bulk up for the NFL diet, Tim.
Yeah.
All right. Let's hit on a few of these very popular, so now I'm going to go back and visit raw food diets, low carb diets, and plant-based diets. And there are a variety of types of diets that you've probably heard about. And we're going to talk about some of the rankings of these diets as far as how they score in healthiness and overall weight loss. So this comes from the U.S.
Are these all going to be weight loss geared?
Not necessarily. And that's so the U.S. News puts out a best diets ranking, and this is put together by doctors and dietitians, and so these are people that know what they're talking about, and they score diets based on weight loss and on healthiness. And so you can find this ranking online, but you're listening to my podcast or our podcast right now, so I'll tell you the rankings. So don't leave. Okay, so number 1 for 2023 is the Mediterranean diet. Okay, so this is really on the top of everyone's list right now. The Mediterranean diet is the thing, and what it is, it's fruits, it's vegetables, it's whole grains, fish, nuts, lentils, olive oil. It's really heavy in all of those types of things, but essentially on top of everyone's list right now is this Mediterranean diet. And that's because it does help with weight loss, but it's also very healthy. And they've started tying it to longevity as well. So obviously weight loss can help with longevity, but independent of, I think, at least my understanding of some of this research is independent of the weight loss, there's also longevity gains just based on the healthiness factors and the type of food that you're consuming. So Mediterranean diets, it's a good diet both for health and weight loss. And so the U.S. Health, this ranking says out of a score of 5, they give it a 4.6 overall ranking score. So 4.2 for weight loss and 4.6 for healthiness. And like I said, that is the number 1 diet. And they said the big positives, the pros, they said it's you get diverse foods and flavors, so you get to have a big variety of food. It's not there's no counting carbs, there's no calories restriction, but it's super high fiber foods. There's nothing that's off limits, and and so obviously you get to have a lot of these benefits. I think they don't list it in the cons, but I think the big con that I see is that, well, the majority of people that listen to us are not in the Mediterranean. So you live in a particular location, and the food around you.
That's your con? Not just a nice big bowl of lentils is what I want to eat every night for dinner.
Right. Well, if lentils might be my least favorite food. So.
Hey. Okay. I've got to send off here. No joke. My wife just this past week made this lentil salad served cold, and I was like, served cold, really? And then I ate some, and I was like, wow, this is good.
Coming from the man that eats salted okra.
I eat everything, so I am the authority on what tastes good. You guys only tasted half the taste out there. So I'm telling you, we're gonna pass along this recipe. Maybe we can even post it with the notes, Carl, so that everyone listening can try this lentil salad, and you can see for yourself that lentils can be yum.
All right, Tim, that is your thing you have to do this week is post your wife's lentil salad recipe on our Facebook page so everyone can see it.
All right. It's good, guys. It's good.
Can I post my recipe for cocktail weenies?
Yeah, you can post your recipe for
can we get a mashup? Can we get a lentil cocktail weenie salad?
And we also put our medical disclaimer on the Facebook page.
Okay, so yes, we'll get Tim's lentil salad nonsense on somewhere that you can ignore.
Good nonsense. Delicious.
Once again, we live in a particular area, and you have friends that don't eat lentils. Yes, and so I'm all for implementing good sound practices and good sound diets. The Mediterranean diet might be a great way to implement good heart health, good weight loss, all of those things. But if it's too radical of a change, that's to me one of the cons, is that a lot of people jump into these diets with good intentions, but not a realistic approach to what fits in their life, right? So the Mediterranean diet, for all its wonderful positives, might not be the thing that fits for you. So, but consider that it is the overall top diet for a reason, and these are dietitians and nutritionists and medical doctors say it's a go. Okay, the number 2 diet is the DASH diet. Once again, this is according to U.S. News and best overall diets of 2023. It scores a 4.4.
I'm assuming that's not order just whatever off of DoorDash.
If it isn't that, I don't want to know.
The
different type of diet.
Nachos.
We found it, Tim. Okay, DASH. Once again, I did not know this. It stands for Dietary Approaches to Stop Hypertension. So this is the big.
For those with high blood pressure. Okay.
Exactly. Hypertension standing for high blood pressure. So this is heart disease being still one of the biggest killers in the world. So this is a diet that is supposed to help significantly with your heart disease. And it emphasizes fruits, vegetables, whole grains, and lean meats, low in salt, red meat, and added sugars, and low in fat. So
sounds like just eat healthy food diet.
Yeah, I mean, pretty much. And a lot of this one, it's not geared to be really a weight loss diet, but it can be. Once again, it's more geared for getting control of your health. But a lot of these diets have other health benefits besides. So in this case, like obviously the goal of the diet is to control hypertension, but the studies have shown that it helps lower risk of breast and colorectal cancers, and anything that can help control cancer, obviously a big benefit. So average diet on DASH is 5 servings of vegetables, 5 servings of fruit, 7 servings of healthy carbs like whole grains, 2 servings of low-fat dairy, and 2 servings or fewer of lean meat. So, and then they recommend having nuts and seeds 2 or 3 times a week. So that's the DASH diet. Next diet, the flexitarian diet, and this is tied. This is a tie with the DASH diet, and this is so a 4.4 overall, and the score is low on the weight loss, 4.2, but that's tied with what the Mediterranean diet was. So low is relative. But once again, all of these are really focusing more on how to be healthy than really how to lose weight. So it turns out those things are related, but yeah, this one is consume proteins from plants instead of animals. Eat mostly fruits, vegetables, beans, whole grains, and eat less processed food. And if you've seen the studies out there recently, processed food such as cocktail weenies, not so good for you, it turns out. So anytime you can cut processed foods out of your diet, that's a good place to start. So even if you're not going plant-based or flexitarian, that's a great place to start. And then limit your sugar and sweets as well. So flexitarian diet isn't as radical as going full plant-based or full vegan vegetarian. But I'm going to take a quick minute here and do an aside. So my mother-in-law had heart disease. She had a completely calcified, is that what it was? Calcified artery in her heart. She had to have open heart surgery and had a heart valve put in or something. I don't remember. Anyway, open heart surgery, and pretty radical. And she had had familial high cholesterol. I mean, crazy high. And post heart surgery, she decided I need to change my diet. So she has now been vegan for a large number of years. Well, I guess all things are relative. Let's call it 7 or 8 years that she's been vegan. And she has knocked her cholesterol off, I think, a couple 100 points, which is truly astounding. And she, her heart doesn't have the issues it used to have, it turns out, when you're eating just fruits and vegetables and whole grains all the time, which is all she does. So that is a plug for vegan health benefits. Vegetarian would obviously have a lot of the same benefits, but you get to have animal products which incorporate some fat, which can raise cholesterol. So if you're trying to target specifically cholesterol, like my mother-in-law was, vegan is a ticket, and anecdotally went quite well for her. Any insights, Cameron, Matt, or Tim, about vegan or vegetarian or flexitarian diets?
I've also heard vegan diets do wonders for cholesterol and stuff like that. We have had members in our immediate family that have done it for similar reasons as your mother-in-law. So,
right. Yep. Yep. So benefits.
Definitely
All right,
good benefits. Yeah.
We're going to hit 2 more types of diets before we round off here. So we've got the MIND diet. That's MIND, which all of these have these acronyms, which stands for the Mediterranean Dash Intervention for Neurodegenerative Delay Diet. That's a mouthful. You certainly need an acronym there, don't you? And the diet, well, as it says, it has to do with some Mediterranean, some DASH. It's very plant-centered, so it's kind of a lot of these other diets put together, but it doesn't have a strict, specific meal plan, but you're supposed to eat 10 specific types of foods that give brain health. And so the types of food you're supposed to have: green leafy vegetables, 6 or more servings of green leafy vegetables, 1 serving of non-starchy vegetables, and 5 or more servings of nuts. So eat berries, eat beans, eat olive oil, whole grains, fish, and poultry. which, by the way, doesn't add up to 10, but that's the list that they have for me. So you get what I get. So that's the Mind diet. And on the U.S. News ranking, the Mind diet is number 4, scores a 4.3 overall. So last diet is that we're going to discuss here. There are numerous diets. There are a lot of diets out there. So if you want to dig in further, be my guest. But the TLC diet, once again, an acronym here, which stands for the Therapeutic Lifestyle Changes Diet, which is, once again, a type of diet that isn't a specific, Weight Watchers type, count the calories type thing. It's a, lifestyle. So you're supposed to eat what you eat is up to you, but you're supposed to cut saturated fat to less than 7% of your daily calories. Make sure you get no more than 200 milligrams of dietary cholesterol in a day, and that's about 2 ounces of cheese. Incorporate plant stanols or sterols, which are found in vegetable oil and certain types of margarine. And eat lots of fruits, vegetables, whole grains, low-fat or non-fat dairy foods, fresh or fish, poultry, and poultry without the skin. So that is the TLC diet, which again is the Therapeutic Lifestyle Changes Diet, and that was developed in the early 2000s to help reduce cholesterol levels. So those are some of the various types of diets. Now, we hadn't we didn't touch on Weight Watchers or shake diets or these other types of diets that are far more commercialized specifically and prepackaged in order to help you control some of the hardest part of dieting, which really is selecting and preparing the foods, right? So these other diets we talked about, the ones here on the U.S. News ranking, are the different types of food to eat. And how effective implementing those types of food is for both weight loss and health, heart health, and the various other types of ways that your food influences your health. But the type of weight loss diets that a lot of people go in for, the Weight Watchers, those types of things, can be very effective. The thing with those diets is that they are generally time bounded, right? Those are you're doing them for a specific amount of time in order to get off them. You want to be done with them. These diets we just discussed are generally long-term implementation things that you're going to do make a change in your lifestyle. So all right, well, we're going to go ahead and get ready to wrap up here. Matt, besides cocktail weenies, any particular insights you have for dieting?
No, the biggest one is, if before you jump in on a diet, talk to someone who actually can evaluate you and your situation and make medically qualified recommendations, whether this is a weight loss, weight gain, or diet for any other reason or factor. Talk with someone who is credentialed before you jump in on one of these things. U.S. News is great, but U.S. News is not your doctor.
And they don't know your specific situation. That's a good point.
Right.
All right. Thanks, Matt. Cameron?
I would say appropriately credentialed, just a caveat to what Matt said.
Oh, yeah. Thank you.
So you mean a doctorate in philosophy is not?
Or, if they have like a podcast.
No, like there's a difference between like a dietitian and like a registered dietitian. When going to college, my nutrition teacher said he knew someone who got his parrot to be a dietitian, something like that.
That's nice. Interesting.
Versus like an actual, like, they actually had to go to school to do things. Yeah. Make sure you pick the right one.
Yeah. Otherwise, you end up with people telling you, yeah, just do cocktail weenies, man.
Yeah. Or when my mother-in-law was having issues with her kidneys, one of the things they said was avoid MSG. And she's like, oh, where do you find MSG? And she's like, oh, just basically Chinese food. And I was like, why are you in a medical office telling my mother-in-law that MSG is in a lot more than just Chinese food? So I was a little like, why are you talking? Don't talk anymore. But things like that.
Perfect.
All right. Do some research as well. Like good research.
MSG, monosodium glutamate, by the way, not generally good for you.
Unless you're listening to Uncle Roger, who will tell you that MSG is the best thing ever in your food.
Well, I mean, it does taste good.
Again, appropriate credentials.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, so for my final thoughts, a few years ago, I was reading a book called Salt, Sugar, Fat, and it was kind of scary because like it talks about how the food industry prepares and plans like recipes, and how carefully they'll focus test and experiment scientifically on the effect that different foods and different combinations of foods, salt, sugar, fat, and other ingredients will have on consumers, so that they can maximize its attractiveness. And so my big takeaway in talking about diets is I think if you're a regular Joe like me, or most of us are, I think
a layman,
maybe you're not,
as it were.
Yes, that's right. You may not be looking to adopt a crazy diet and totally change your lifestyle, but a couple of things that I feel helped me. One is my Aunt Mary taught me actually that you look at, when you're looking at any kind of grain product, look at the fiber, and if it's got less than 2 grams of fiber per serving, then it's an unhealthy food. It's think of it as kind of like a dessert or something. But for your regular everyday food, for bread, tortillas, crackers, or whatever, if it's doesn't have that fiber in it, that's just a good rule of thumb. Look for 2 grams or more per serving. And generally speaking, the more dietary fiber it's got per serving, the better off you're going to be from a health standpoint. And the other thing that just watch those free sugars. Anything that has a high sugar content can just treat it like a dessert. One kind of, this was a shocker for me when I was growing up, yogurt. I always thought of yogurt as like a healthy food. But next time you get some yogurt, look at the label and look at the sugar content. Unless you're eating plain yogurt, it's a dessert. And if you can tweak a couple of things like that in your dietary choices, you don't need to adopt the Mediterranean or the flexitarian diet or whatever. If you can just avoid foods that have high sugar content and low fiber, protein, and those kinds of things, you can generally, I feel like you can navigate pretty well in this world, in a nutritional environment that, to be honest, if you're not paying attention, you're gonna at some point be in trouble. I think there's a reason why Western society has an epidemic of obesity and diabetes and heart disease. It's that we're not trained to be aware of these things that the food industry is, they're trying to sell and sell as much as they can. So anyways, adopt one of these diets if you want, or just caveat emptorum, let the eater be.
I don't appreciate that type of language.
What would the Latin for "let the eater beware"? Snackeat emptorum? No, I guess caveat snackorum. That's the.
Tim, I don't know if you know, Latin is dead.
We're bringing it back, baby. Mediterranean diet. The Latins knew. The Romans knew.
Aside, I believe Tim and I had the goal in college to bring Latin back. Didn't we?
Did it work?
Work in progress.
Well, apparently Tim's still trying. I gave up.
Oh yeah. Well, now we've got this huge platform that so it's
E pluribus unum.
Yes, indeed.
All right. And so my last, I guess, insights into both anecdotally and things I've heard from doctors and those types of things is, I mean, we just talked about diet today. Exercise does an important part of overall, healthy lifestyle. So consider that. Also, if you're intermittent fasting to the point where you can't also exercise, you're probably doing it wrong. So just a consideration. And then I guess the big thing is, and Tim mentioned this, Matt mentioned the lifestyle, the way that you implement a diet is specific to you, and it's a lifestyle change. And so consider your lifestyle, and if you need to see a doctor, if you need to go see a dietitian, a registered dietitian, do those things. If you're having issues with anorexia, bulimia, all those other, please go do that. But for the layman out there that just has, a gut or has some love handle, whatever you might be struggling with, knock off the low-hanging fruit. Like, you don't have to change your life radically in order to make positive gains. So if you are slamming a bag of popcorn every night, like I used to.
Hey, popcorn is a grain. I don't know what the problem is.
Health food.
Fiber.
Right. Consider maybe not doing that every day. Like there's low-hanging fruit in your life. And instead of having to completely rewrite your life, find the low-hanging fruit and cut it out. Right. And that will be relatively easy as far as not having to change your lifestyle, but have some of the positive impacts in your life, quality, your quality of life, your weight, but also your health. And so if it's candy, if it's sugar, like Tim mentioned, like if the consideration of how much processed sugar you're putting into your body is a big one. So think about that. If you're saying, oh, I do pretty well, and then you're eating a bag of Skittles as your dinner, even if you're not gaining weight, you're doing probably some bad things to your body. So cut out that low-hanging fruit, use some common sense. But then, yeah, if you have, if you want to do if you need a big lifestyle change, if you do have big health concerns, there are doctors, there are dietitians, there are people that can actually help you get on the right road, and not be led down the cocktail weenie road and deal with scurvy. So, but as a layman, go ahead and make the small changes necessary to reap some great rewards as far as health is concerned, and that will be my way to sign off here. So thanks, Matt. Thanks, Cameron. Thanks, Tim. And before we do sign off, I guess I mentioned this before, but I'm always very happy that we have a Tasmanian listener. We have someone in Tasmania that listens religiously, so thank you. We have right now the listeners in India have really taken off. That used to be neck and neck with the UK. It's no longer. India far outpaces. So either the UK needs to step it up, or we just need to go on a trip to India. Either way, I'm good with it. So thank you, everyone that's listening. Share this on whatever platform you share things on. Word of mouth is great too. And we'll be back again next podcast. Thanks.